So welcome everybody. You're going to have a real treat today. I am doing a joint Zoom with Ariane Zurcher from New York City, and we're going to get the nits and grits of all that she's about. So welcome. Well, the one thing that I wanted to show first off, just to get it out of the way, is my
look at you.
look at
Oh, nice.
I'm very much tempted to turn it into a pillow because I have
It's adorable as a
my
pillow.
my grandchildren's bedroom and toy room is all ocean themed in ode to my parents. And so I was thinking, oh, maybe I need to make this into a pillow, but I haven't decided. So tell us about, well, no, I'm going to ask you a bunch of questions. This is going to be all over the board.
Got it.
You're in New York City,
Yes.
but where were you born?
Northern California,
Northern California. Whereabouts in Northern California?
in a little town called Woodside in the Bay Area.
Yes.
About 10 miles from Stanford University.
Yeah.
Very much the country when I was there.
It is.
I don't know if it is still considered.
Yeah, horse country. It's still horse country. Yes.
4 horses. I had to muck out, each of us had to muck out a stall. I didn't care for those horses.
So you don't own any horses in New York City, huh?
And I wouldn't even if I lived in the country. My sister, however, whom I adore, she's my best friend. I love her to death. Couldn't be more different. She has a ranch in Colorado with tons of horses. That's what she does. She raises horses. She raises them, trains them, sells them, raises them. She's got a little filly called Nora right now, who is like the most adorable, beautiful little filly I've ever seen. Adorable. I love watching them. I love going to my sister's, hanging out, giving them carrots, petting them,
and then going home. And
I don't have to, well, I did help my sister muck out the stalls, but this is not part of my job description. So I'm very pleased.
Well, to give everyone a little bit of background, we met at a stitching workshop in Tucson, and we were staying at Tanque Verde, and I was totally in awe of you. I know people have heard this story before, so I won't repeat it. They can go look at some older videos and see how extraordinary you were as a stitcher. They can see pictures on Instagram that I might have posted because
you interviewed me.
Yes, I think that's what I did so long ago. Though, everything is judged now in pre-COVID, post-COVID. And then there's the year of where nothing happened, so that's, it makes me think, like, how long ago was that? Was it 18 or 19?
No, it was like 17.
Really?
I don't know. Maybe it was it is. It's all a blur. It's like 19 was COVID though, right? No, 20 was COVID.
20 was COVID.
So maybe it was 18.
Yeah. It's hard to know. But what I do know is that from that point on, you kind of just exploded in the stitching world and you have not stopped. When I Googled you, I Googled you.
No, God, what happened?
There's more than one page. You have more than one page. You have to go like to 2 and 3 pages. Your name just is filling a Google. I mean, to me, in the tech world, I think that's you've arrived.
You've arrived. You have more than one page on a Google search.
I know. I mean, it's amazing. So you grew up in Woodside, which is interesting to me because my best friend from childhood lived in a little cabin that was like a second cottage to a big home when we were in our 30s, I think, in Woodside. And then the wedding was at that cabin in Woodside. So I'm very familiar with it. My youngest son was 5 weeks old when I went to that wedding.
Oh.
It was so lovely. It was so lovely. So when did your family move from Woodside?
Well, they didn't. I moved.
They're still there?
They stayed. Well, no, but they stayed for a long time. And they were really, that was sort of their thing, was a lot of horses and riding. And all of that. And I just couldn't bear it. All I wanted was to get out. I wanted to get to the city. I wanted to get to any city. If so, of course, what city is near me?
San
Well, there's San Francisco, but
Right.
then there's Los Angeles. Now that's a city you want to go to if you're living
Uh-huh.
in Northern California. So I went to LA when I was 17. I graduated early. I did a whole little thing where I was working and doing all kinds of crazy stuff. And I got an associate's of arts degree in fashion design. And I was working for a tailor in Beverly Hills, and he would make these suits for all these, fabulously famous people.
Uh-huh.
And I would be, he wanted me front of the house.
Uh-huh.
All I wanted to do was sit in the back with the old like Armenian guy and stitch and hand stitch. I mean, this was the beginning. This was how
Wow.
it all, it was like, that's what I wanted to do. And he was constantly getting angry with me. Carl von Fiedler, that was his name. And he was constantly getting on me about, I want you in the front of the house. He wanted me to be the
The
face,
face. Yeah. Well, look
and
at you.
I just didn't want that. I
Do you
wanted
want Carl or
well, they wanted Carl for the tailoring, I tell you,
yeah,
that definitely.
yeah,
But he wanted me, I was a greeter, basically. And all I wanted was to learn from the Armenian guy who was doing all the actual tailoring, and everything was they would hand stitch their buttonholes.
so oh my gosh. So where did that desire or drive come from to stitch at that age? I mean, you don't hear of too many 17, 18, 19 year olds that
Insanity. I don't know. Craziness. I mean, yeah, who wants to sit there stitching? I loved it. Loved it. But then he got really angry with me at one time and he said, you have to sit in the front. And I just thought, this isn't going to work. And at that point, I had already applied to Parsons and gotten in.
Mhm.
And Parsons was very hard to get into in their fashion design department. And so I knew I was going to be moving to New York. So I took off and I went to Colorado to stay. We had this little cabin, a little one room log cabin that the family had built from scratch, like literally cut the trees down, strip them, put the thing together. I lived in that cabin. You had to cart in your own water. And over the summer, I went to New York that September of 1981.
There are very few young adults that are so focused that they know exactly what they want to do at that age. Usually you're testing a lot. You're
Yeah,
starting and stopping and starting and stopping, that kind of thing. But
I did that too, though.
you
I
did.
did that too. Yeah. I mean, I loved and the minute I got into Parsons and I went that first year, I knew it wasn't for me. But I felt like here I am. What am I going to do?
Right.
So I just kept at it. But I was in the same class with Marc Jacobs and Tracy Reese and Zhang Toy and all these people who went on to become really famous in the fashion world. But no, I mean, there were only 21 of us who graduated from
Wow.
together.
Wow,
Yeah,
that's
it
a
was like
smaller high school
110.
class than I had.
Yeah, it was like 110 to begin, and then people just fell away. So it was, but I remember, I'll never forget, I landing into JFK and taking a cab and seeing that skyline, and it was like, I am home. I was so thrilled to be in New York. And yeah, and then I did a lot of other stuff. I mean, there's whole stretches of time when I got out of fashion and I moved to London. And
Oh, how long did you live in London?
I was there for a year. My visa ran out. I could only do freelance. I worked for Zandra Rhodes for a little while. Then I worked for Yves Saint Laurent Menswear Knits. I landed a job at Elle when I came back at Elle magazine designing hand knits and doing their page.
Mm-hmm.
And that was a big deal. And then, but I couldn't figure out what it was. I just didn't love it. I wasn't consumed by it. And so then I got into acting because, here I am in New York. Everybody's got to get into acting. I mean, what else?
I didn't
And
know this
working at a
about.
restaurant.
I did not know that. So is there anything we know?
No. Oh
Oh,
gosh, no. I got a job as an ensemble. I was an ensemble cast, so we all had pretty big parts. And I would have nightmares that I hadn't memorized my lines. And it was, anyway, it was one of these subscription things where people subscribed to the theater, and they came in, and they had a huge subscription base. And so the theater was sold out every night that this play ran. I can't even remember the name of it. It was some murder mystery thing. Anyway, it was hilarious. It was a lot of fun. And then and then it's over, your gig's over, and you have to go back to auditioning everywhere. And I was again, I wasn't so passionate that I could keep going with it.
uh-huh. But I
So then
love it's all artistic, what you're talking about. It's
yeah.
kind of interesting because for me, I'm a one-shot wonder, so when I was, and not until probably from when I was young, if I wanted to do something or to know how it felt like,
Right.
I was in 100% until I was done. And then it was the next thing. So I wanted to play tennis in college. I was just about to start college. I wanted to be on the tennis team. So the summer before I started college, I played tennis 8 hours a day to be able to try out for the team and get on the team. And then I played for 1 year, and that's all I did. And so that's kind of the journey that I take, is like, oh, what does this feel like? Like, I wanted to know what it felt like to play a grand piano on stage. So I found a teacher that taught me one 6-page song that I practiced over and over again, because she would rent up at the local college, she would rent the auditorium, and then all of her students would have a recital in front of an audience. And so I got to go up, and I'm saying I'm like maybe 35 or 40. And I got up on stage and sat down and played the grand piano in front of this audience, and then it was done. It's that. So in some ways, it sounds like you, but you have more, it seems like more success with whatever you choose, you know?
No, I mean, it's New York, so
There's
it's a
lots
bigger,
of opportunity.
yeah. And well, yeah. And yeah, but I relate to that. I then worked at an ad agency, and I was the creative director, and had a blast. That was a really fun job.
That
And
would be fun.
and and then I had, at this point I had both my kids. There were some issues with my daughter, and I was in a place of sort of limbo, and I knew I was gonna, sort of a moment of, it was one of those transitional moments in your life, right?
Mhm.
And I was kind of at a loss, and I was knitting a lot of socks and things. And
Taught yourself to knit?
I like knitting, but it gets a little monotonous. It's not as creative as I would like. Even if you're designing a knit, there's only so much you can, I mean, nobody wants to wear a sweater that's got 100 different stitches on it. Let's just face it. Right? And that was sort of my thing, was that I was really interested, like I want to learn how to do the popcorn stitch. So, 300 but nobody wants like those little bubble. I mean, have you ever worn a sweater with those little bubbles? It's not the best look. I mean, it literally looks like you've got creatures stuck on you, So then what?
Well, you must have just embraced this stitching world, though, because
I did.
You kind of have gone bonkers with it. I mean,
Yeah.
the
And
creativity.
the real breakthrough though was going into this linen. And then my friend Pat Polly, who's an amazing artist and hand dyes linen, she started sending me stuff that she had done on linen. And that's when things really just kind of took off, because then it was like this was a whole new thing. And I wasn't seeing a ton of other people doing it. And so I felt like I felt like I'd finally found my voice. This was something that I was doing that was different, this kind of improvisational stitching. I mean, yes, people do slow stitching and they do all kinds of stuff, but for me, it was really a great way to express myself in an abstract way, um, and to do something that was a little different from a lot of what I see out there. And that was important. I didn't want to just do what other people were doing, because there are lots of terrifically talented people doing all kinds of beautiful stuff. And
Right.
I really wanted to find my own way, my own voice, and to do something that was a little different. And so I felt like, okay, this is it. Having said that, I would love to figure out ways to do some of the more representational stuff, because I do have these ideas for doing things. Like my husband and I went to Zion, and we went to Bryce, and we went to Escalante, and we saw these petroglyphs, which were just amazing.
Yeah.
And I so would love to do a piece with the petroglyphs that we saw. I mean, some of them are just so
Wow,
fabulous. It would be
that would be
really, really
amazing.
fun.
Yeah.
So I haven't quite figured out how to incorporate that, but I think I can. I mean, I think with some of the linen that I have with that kind of gold, that red rock that's so
Right.
in that area
It's
as
hard
kind
to
of the
get that
background.
color.
It's amazing.
It's an
Yeah.
amazing color. Yeah.
So yeah, so I feel like this is what I love doing. I know lots of people have been waiting for me to come out with a new design, and I haven't designed anything new for a while. And so I'm feeling a little pressure about that. Like I've got to, but the truth is, what I really love doing is this very sort of free improvisational style stitching, where I just
It's
take a
it's
piece,
amazing.
just go crazy.
Yeah, it's amazing. It's so, you can tell by my background, I'm very, very primitive, basic, but I love following on the Facebook group all of the stitching that people are doing, and it blows my mind. It blows my mind how you provide a platform for them to jump off into this whole creative thing.
You're referring to the Ariane Zurcher Stitching Circle Facebook group.
Yes, I
Yeah,
mean, it's like,
it's really
so
fun. Yeah,
they're amazing. I mean, it
some
went to like,
it's really talented group.
oh,
Yeah,
and all from all over the world.
yeah, yeah. It's
I
really fun. And that's the other thing I just love about Facebook and also the YouTube channel, is that you are able to meet people and interact with people who are all over the world. And I just love that. And
Yeah.
somehow I have and I'm not sure how it started, but somehow a lot of French speaking people have found me. And I think it's been sort of word of mouth. And so there's a huge group that are French speakers, which I just love, because my father that was his native language. And
Oh,
even though I
really?
can't speak fluently, I am working hard at trying to learn French, so that my goal is to be able to do a whole thing in French. I mean, I would
Oh
love
my
that.
gosh. Would that not be amazing?
But
Well,
I'm
I
far from
kind
there.
of think of, having been to France a few times, I kind of think of them as an artistic culture, so
Oh yeah.
maybe, and not to make them seem like it's not going on anywhere else, but um, I can see that. I can see that. It's style. So tell us about now, when I Googled your name.com, I got this great website that had all the links to everything, whether you were designing jewelry or, your
Fashion.
stitching.
Yeah.
On the other hand, there's links to get to you every which way.
So my husband designed that website, and he's so creative and so talented, and he designed it. And then this fabulous woman who actually is in England, Kai, who she has a company called Hosting for Writers. And she's one of these people who does a million different things, but she got in there and just fine-tuned it. And this woman is so creative. So she's a writer and she writes a lot of fiction, and she's brilliant, but she's also very techy. And so she knows that language. So she goes in there and she just took that website and ran with it and made it what it is.
It's fabulous. It's fabulous. I mean,
It
it's so
was all them. I mean,
so professional looking.
that was like 2 years in the making, or no, that was a year in the making for sure.
Uh-huh.
But yeah.
So how did you meet your husband?
So Richard and I met on Christmas Day.
Christmas Day
At a Christmas party of a mutual friend, someone that he actually didn't know, a really close friend of mine, someone he didn't really know, but a friend of his knew well, and knew that he was alone in New York City, and said, come on. And he was like, I'm not feeling up to it. I just really want to do nothing. And the guy was persistent and said, no, you're coming with me. And so there was Richard seated on a couch in this tiny little apartment, a 1-bedroom, which means that a closet is basically where the bed is.
Yeah.
And then there's like a kitchen that's, like this big, and everyone's crammed into this little space. And she was in the theater world. So there were all these, just pretty high profile, high powered people in the theater world. And we're playing games like charades and parlor games. I mean, it was just so much fun. And no matter who I was paired with, I would lose. It didn't matter. And whoever Richard was paired with, he was winning. And I kept looking over and thinking, who is this guy? And so we started talking and having sort of this little, and at one point he said something, and I said, oh, and I thought you were flirting with me. And he said, well, I was, but in addition, blah, 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 blah. And I can't even remember what it was, but that was sort of how things started. And then, hi, Marley. And then my father, so this was Christmas Day. We were so we went out a couple times with big groups of people. And my father would always call me Sunday in the morning. And Sunday came and went, and he didn't call. And so I think I called him, or maybe my mother called, I can't remember, and said, your father is dying. You have to come out. And so I literally, and this just tells you the time period, right? I grabbed a pair of underwear. I mean, you're really not thinking when you get this news. A pair of underwear, some cash, my keys, and I left. I had no driver's license. I think I had a credit card, a hairbrush. I brought a hairbrush, and that was it. That was all I had in a bag.
Oh my gosh.
And they let me on. I mean, this was in the 90s, And
yeah, definitely
you could do that.
Yeah.
I mean, it's just incredible to think. And no cell phones. We didn't have cell phones in those days. And I got to California, and my father had been in a coma, and he was at home, and he came to, and he said, oh, my darling Ariane, my treasure. And I just was there with him, and it was just this intense time, and he died January 4th. And that night, I checked my home message machine. You could do that, remember? You could
right.
Uh-huh. And Richard had called and left a message. And so I called him and said, my dad's dying, and I'm out here in California with him. And that was our courtship. And it was an insane time. there was no sort of, lighthearted. I mean, it was just, here we were, and it was all about death and dying, and it was crazy. And when I came back to New York, um, he asked me, he was so sweet. He asked me out. He said, I'd like to take you out to dinner and to the theater. And we went out and had this lovely date. And then he brought me back and I said, well, do you want to come up? And he said, no, but I'll call you tomorrow. And he was such a gentleman. It was like, who is this guy? What do you mean you don't want to come up? I mean, what? So then he called me the next day. And and I'm thinking, I'll never hear from him again.
Right.
Called me the next day after that. It was kind of a whirlwind. And so that was January, and August, I was pregnant with my son. We decided I was 38 years old. I thought, okay, I like this guy. I love him. Mm-hmm. And we talked about having kids, and that was kind of it.
Wow.
Yeah. And he's my rock, mm-hmm. He is my rock. I mean, between my husband and my sister, I feel, and then my other siblings, I have 4 siblings, and I'm all of them. I'm really lucky, I feel so blessed.
And where do they all live? One's in Colorado.
All over the country. So there's one up in Newport, there's one near Chicago, there's one in San Diego, there's one in Colorado. And then there's me. Yeah, we're all over the place.
So you can have a place to stay no matter where you go.
Wherever I am.
Yeah. Wherever you are.
Yeah, Midwest, not a problem.
Now, are they into the arts of any kind?
So my brother up in Newport took one of my workshops.
Oh,
my stitching workshop. It was great.
Oh my gosh.
At one point, my husband comes in and he says, well, how did it go? And I said, it was great. And he said, you talk so differently to your brother than you do to all the other people.
That would be a fun workshop to be in, just to see.
He took a couple. He took one of my Dorset button workshops, and then he did another one that was much more intense. And he was really beginner, had never, I sent him everything. I sent him needles, I sent him thread, I said, Chris, just don't, I'm going to send you a bunch of stuff. So I sent him this big care package so that he was all set. And he was such a trooper. He was so fun. And he was so excited because he finished the scissor case and it looks great.
Did he? So he loved it, huh?
He did. Yeah.
Oh, how awesome.
And then I have a brother who knits and does amazing knitting.
See, I have high hopes that I found that there's a YouTube channel called the Quilting Marine.
Oh.
And he's a retired Marine and retired from the I think from a police department. Right. And he to help him with his PTSD, he took up quilting, and he has his own YouTube channel. So yeah, so I have high hopes that my older son, I said, you've got to watch this Quilting Marine, because he's using quilting for PTSD. And I think, I need someone to leave my quilting to. So I want you to really get involved in that. But, I don't think we have enough of the male population that realizes how therapeutic stitching is. Yeah. But it's changing. It's changing. Yeah. Yeah. And so I love that. I just love that,
I do too. I know quilters often who don't hand stitch just are horrified by how, I do not hand me a needle and thread.
Right.
Machine, I'm all over the machine, but I like both. I mean, I really do.
Yeah.
So, but I feel like, I'm not a quilter, but I certainly get the joy of that. Mm-hmm. And the hand stitching, it really is so meditative and just soothing. It's like the equivalent of sitting near a river or by the ocean. It's that kind of,
Right.
there's
So
just
do
this.
you have anything there that in front of you, like one of your bags or any stitching right there that you can just flash at the screen?
Well, funny that you should say
Oh,
that.
hold that up closer to the camera. Holy moly. See, this is something that just blows my mind.
So this is one of my Pat Polly dyed linens.
Oh,
Right?
so is that one piece of linen?
It's one piece. It was actually two thin pieces that I sewed together.
Uh-huh.
I blurred the seam right there.
Right.
You can kind of see. Here's the
Uh-huh.
seam. But I sort of blurred it with a lot of wool roving. I love playing with wool roving and other things. So that's one. And then I have this one, which is huge. This one's really big.
You know, it's like taking the Victorian crazy quilting off the charts. That's
Yeah.
what it
I
that
mean, it's so different than crazy quilting, but
yeah,
yeah, but I get what you're saying.
right.
It's
You know, like crazy quilting, you're really geometric,
yeah,
but it's a lot of stitching in that
yeah,
geometry. And this is like free flowing.
yeah.
It's totally free
I
flowing.
mean, it's really sort of almost like you're making a new textile.
Right, right.
All the different things. And I paint on it. So I added I stencil painted on it. This fabric is from my friend Pat Polly.
That's amazing.
And this down here.
And do they have their own website for linen?
So, okay, so Pat, I kept saying, Pat, you got to start selling, linen. You got to start painting linen. And so she said, okay. So she got, I don't know how many yards, but she got a bunch of yards from, Test Fabrics. And she painted it. And she said, okay, I'm going to put it on the website. I'm telling you first. And I said, I'm going to tell all my patrons, right, on Patreon. So I sent the link to my patrons and I said, grab it while you can. This is all she's got. She sold out in like 3 hours. Gone. It's all gone. It was like it was like watching a horse race. I'm refreshing the page and I'm seeing sold.
You must have felt like a mother.
I called her up. I'm like, oh my gosh.
Yeah. Oh, she was probably not even anticipating.
Well, and then she'd given a special price for it. So the linens won't be that cheap next time around. But so people who got lucky
and they got lucky
and jumped on it.
All in the timing. It's all in the timing.
She's not gonna she can't get the linen now. There's some problem with the distributor. So now it's gonna be a couple months. But
yeah, I know that
fun, to do that.
Greg's in the next room putting together a cabinet that I've been trying to get a hold of for 4 months, but it was stuck on the Ever Given, in the Suez Canal. And so I kept refreshing the page until it came. It was from IKEA, and it's a cabinet that I wanted to store my cross stitch stuff in. Well, let me tell you, it has, 10,000 pieces. And it's like a giant puzzle. And so he's in there. And
so you're like, here, Greg, you do it.
It's like got instructions on, the smiley face. You don't want this to happen in the sad face.
Oh, no.
Oh,
no.
And so I think he would be a good stitcher, because the fact that he can even interpret something, and he's very artistic, but it's, that's just not his thing. He's more musically inclined. But okay, so I want to get this moving on, although I could just sit here and talk forever. If you had 3 words to describe yourself, what would they be?
Friendly.
I agree.
Energetic.
I agree.
I guess passionate.
Passionate. Yeah, see, I would have pegged all three of those too for you. I mean, it's I mean, I noticed that the very first moment that I saw you on the next table from me. There's something different about this person, and I'm always attracted to those personalities that you feel more than you feel the energy field around them, not just what they're doing. That's what always makes me move towards, in a crowd, moves towards the person, that it's not just about what you see, it's the whole energy around them. So I get it. I get it.
When I just have to tell people this because Anna, you were the one who really encouraged me to do the YouTube channel. And when you and I were talking at Tenke Verde, and I said, can I just talk to you about this idea I have? And then I said, I want to do this. And you were like, oh, you've got to do that. You have got to go for it.
Yeah.
And you were so encouraging. And then and then I started it. And it was right when COVID had hit New York City. We were the epicenter. It was an absolute, like being dropped into some sort of sci-fi set. It was just horrifying. And I'm just working constantly around the clock. And then every now and then I would see this huge uptick in subscribers. And I would go to your channel because I knew you had said something. It was like every single time that Anna would mention me, and then she'd put my link down below, and I'd get like 300 subscribers in a day. It's like, and I would say to my husband, there goes Anna.
Yeah.
He was like,
You deserve every single one of them, because there is so much that you share to the world. There really is. Now, I know you have a big trip coming up, and I'm excited to get on the Facebook and see the blow by blow, and I'm horrible at that social media stuff. It's even when I put something out, sometimes it's 24 hours before I get back to it and stuff, but I'm like waiting for this, like I was waiting for an episode of Sex and the City. It's going to be so amazing. And I know that it seems like you stumble upon the art world no matter where you go, that you get it no matter where you go. So I'm anxious to see what comes out of this.
Me too. This is probably one of the craziest ideas we've ever put into action, this trip. Because, in the midst of COVID, so I'm just going to say, we're going to Africa. Crazy. So here's what I've been doing mentally to prepare. I keep thinking, we were in the epicenter of the pandemic in New York City when things were so bad, before even people really knew, before everyone was wearing masks, and we somehow got through it okay. And we're now going to countries that don't have anywhere near 8.5 million people in their, and we're vaccinated fully, and we're going to be wearing masks. Let's just, So I said to Richard, oh, I'm so excited for this trip. And I said, do you think we're just crazy to be doing this? And he said, well, we won't be if we don't get quarantined in Africa for 14 days because we've gotten sick. Then no, this will be the greatest idea we ever had. If we get quarantined, yeah, we're crazy. Well, I'll be documenting this. So I've got a GoPro. I have to test it tomorrow. Tomorrow's the day I'm testing it. We're going to be hiking with the gorillas on my birthday in August. Yeah.
Yeah.
And then we're going to Botswana and we're doing a whole bunch of safaris. And this is just a dream of mine. It's been a dream for I can't even tell you how long. My father and mother used to go to Africa. This is back in the 60s and 70s. My father collected African art, and he actually curated African and pre-Columbian art at the Stanford Museum. He was the curator for it, and he was very knowledgeable. And my mother and father would come back with these stories of Africa. And then these African tribal chieftains would arrive at our house in Woodside in full tribal garb, all of them speaking French. And I remember just looking at these people and thinking, these are the most beautiful, exotic person I've ever seen. I
Yeah.
mean, I was just, you know, a little kid, towhead, white hair, and looking at them going, you know, and I've just always wanted to go to Africa. So I'm
It has to happen then. It just,
and my plan is, and we'll see if this works, but my plan is to do a kind of travel log. I don't know, you know, when we were in Zion, I actually managed to do every single day. Not sure I'm going to do that.
yeah. I think,
Really want to enjoy it.
yeah,
So,
be
you
flexible
know,
with yourself because
yeah,
you don't want to.
I don't want to make any promises to myself, like, and then feel like I'm letting people down.
Right.
So but I will certainly be documenting this. And at some point, who knows whether the Wi-Fi will hold out on me. I mean, who knows what.
And there's so many wonderful fibers there.
Yeah. Now that we probably won't be able to do. I did contact House of Embroidery to see if I could meet them and tour their facility, but they're in total lockdown. I mean, Johannesburg is absolutely, it's just awful right now. So we were going to spend an extra day to do that, but now we're not. So unless things really change dramatically, and I don't see how that's possible, we won't be spending any time. We'll just sort of go to the hotel, sequester ourselves there, and get out.
So how long will you be gone?
Almost 3 weeks. Just
So
short
then,
of.
on the return trip, we'll see a lot more and maybe some new design things come out of the inspiration.
Yeah.
Yeah,
We'll
I know everybody will be waiting with bated breath on what you'll come up with. Just,
Yeah. It's just such a vibrant, amazing place. So
the
different.
birth of mankind.
Yeah. We all descend. Yeah.
Yeah.
So it's exciting.
Yeah.
It's really, really exciting. We're only allowed to bring a tiny little bag with us. That's it.
Oh, well, you
Because
went
we're
to
on these little,
California with a pair of underwear in your
and a hairbrush.
so I think you're set. I think you're set. Hey, I traveled all across Europe with a backpack, so I know it can be done.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, anyone who camps, anyone who does that, even if you're camping in a camper and all that.
Yeah.
I mean,
you
still, you know how to downsize.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much for spending some time with us. I know that you're on the countdown for this trip, and I appreciate.
When I get back, I've got 2 workshops back to back. I've got a basics workshop, which I'm doing for people who have, almost very little or to no knowledge about hand stitching, and I've got kits put together, and I did one in June. I think we had an absolute blast. It's 2 days. I'm doing that in the end of September, and then directly following that, I'm doing another improvisational stitching workshop, which is 5 consecutive Saturdays, and that's where we do things like this.
Yeah.
And lots of, we cover lots of design elements, and we talk a lot about color and design and all of that. So it'll be, we'll get back and then boom, hit the road running.
Before I let you go, there's one more thing I wanted you to talk about, which I didn't know about you. It is that you also, besides majoring in design, you did creative writing, which is I love that writing process. That's the whole reason even though the blog is like this basic little woolly blog that's just me unloading onto a page my thoughts, there's something about the writing process that I love. And I did not know that you did that. I knew that you wrote, but the whole creative writing. So just talk a bit about that.
Well, I wanted to major. There were 2 things I wanted to do when I went to college. I wanted to be a fine artist, That was the first. And or be a writer. And the colleges that I wanted to get into for either of those things, I didn't get into. So, and my parents were very sort of, really, are you sure you want to be a fine artist? That's, no money there. Why don't you do something more sensible? So, fashion design, and then hated it. But the creative writing, I started. I had a moment where I wrote for the Huffington Post, and they actually sent me to Jerusalem to cover a conference, and so I did, and I covered the Aspen Ideas Festival, and so
See,
I
that
got,
blew me away because the Huffington Post is one of my favorites.
yeah, it was,
So,
and this was in the early days. It was, I mean, Ariana has done she did an amazing job with that a whole online, and she was the first, to do all that.
mhm.
In any case, so that was fun, but the creative writing I dabbled in, and I realized I'm not a great, I love to write, but I'm not a great creative fictional writer.
Mhm.
Even though I did get my master's in that, but it was, yeah.
Well,
So
there's still time. There's still lots of living and lots of things to do.
yeah,
So,
yeah.
well, thank you again. And we'll have to do this again, I'm sure, because
Thanks
I
so much,
will
Anna.
want to see hear about the blow by blow afterwards. But in the meantime, you stay safe.
Thank
Have a
you.
great time, and then we'll put the links down below. Are they listed on your website, the upcoming workshops?
Yes, they're all under workshops. If you go to the
Okay,
website and you click on workshops, both of those are on there. Yeah.
okay, great. So we'll do that. Okay,
Thank
bye
you, Anna.
everyone.